The moon doesn't spin. Did you know that? It's always looking at us with the same face. We rotate and the moon follows along. So, it's always the same face on the moon. That face that we see on the moon is always there, and it's always the same one, looking back at us and everyone who is looking at the moon. You, me, Emily Dickinson, Andrew Jackson, and Jesus. Always the same moon, always the same face, always the same sight. And if you and your baby are apart and the moon is up on both of you, that means you're looking at the same thing. This is, in my opinion, undoubtedly a romantic thing to imagine all of the people looking at the moon at the same time that you are looking at the moon. But also, I think it's something spiritual, something that transcends just the day to day, night to night activities that we do, something that transcends us into the forever and always. And that's something that I think captures a lot of imaginations and a lot of poets, possibly in particular. Welcome to Strip Cover Lit, Strip Cover Lit, where we squeeze the bigger picture out of literature. Pardon me. I'm Adrian Fort, and we are here for a video that will appear in two separate playlists here on the channel. Number one being the poetry discussion video, now over 700 videos strong, and number two being the Emily Dickinson playlist, a playlist dedicated to the greatest poet that ever was, Emily Dickinson. The poem in question today is known as You Know That Portrait in the Moon, and it reads as such. You know that portrait in the moon, so tell me who 'tis like. The very brow, the stooping eyes, a fog for, say, whose sake? The very pattern of the cheek, it varies in the chin, but Ishmael, since we met, 'tis long, and fashions intervene. When moon's at full, 'tis thou, I say, my lips just hold the name. When crescent thou art worn, I note, but there the golden same. And when some night, bold, slashing clouds cut thee away from me, that's easier than the other film that glazes holiday. Now, if we're talking about this poem, I think that it is maybe helpful to talk about where a lot of the conversation around this poem begins and really ends. And I guess that this is maybe a natural thing because of the nature of this poem, but a lot of the questions and conversations around this poem are about diagnosis. Who is, let us diagnose, who is the individual to whom Emily Dickinson is speaking in this poem? I, for one, don't care. For two reasons, really. Number one, it only serves to make me jealous. Number two, that's not why I turn to literature. I don't turn to literature for the author's intent. I turn to literature for what's in there, really, selfishly, for me. I think that is how all of us should approach literature. And possibly on this same branch of criticism from the conversations that do take place in this poem, I do want to talk about who this poem is for in a sense. Not the literal person, not the person to whom this poem was actually written, but the kind of person to whom this poem was written. It's very interesting to me. We have a name. Probably it's not the real name of the person. Probably this is metaphorical. We have to believe this is metaphorical. As far as I know, there is no documented Ishmael in Emily Dickinson's life, but there was no documented Ishmael in Emily Dickinson's life. But let's talk about that name and what it represents. Ishmael means God hears, or depending on the definition, some sort of combination of God and hearing and God. God hears you, God hears this, right? Something like that. But Ishmael was Abraham's first son, Abraham of the Abrahamic religions. However, it's not the son that inherited everything from Abraham. Interesting about Ishmael, possibly one of the reasons why that name was chosen for this poem, Ishmael lived in the desert. Now, that's kind of not really the in particular of it, but was a wanderer a little bit. You can see it that way, at least. The desert, the subconscious. We talk about this a lot with poetry and short stories in particular. But it's also harsh conditions. The desert represents harsh conditions. I think that in my own interpretations of the desert, it's a little bit different than the forest. It's a little bit different than the ocean. The desert, in my opinion, really is about ascetics, really is about the torture of the body for the good of the soul, right? That, in my opinion, is more in line with the symbolism that we often get from the desert than from the forest, which is really kind of subconscious, and from the ocean, which is, in my opinion, more aligned with mystery than just the subconscious. Also, Ishmael was an archer, was focused. We could see it that way. So someone who was living by extreme conditions and focused and possibly a wanderer. All of these symbolically point to someone who is kind of extreme, right? Someone who is not just waking up and going about their day, someone who has some type of intent, someone who might be the apple of the eye of a poet, of someone who is exploring deeper ideas and things like that. But here is, in my opinion, the most interesting thing about Ishmael. Ishmael, like I said earlier, was Abraham's first son. But it was Isaac who inherited Abraham's fortune, or whatever it is you want to say, wealth, whatever it is that you want to say, he inherited. Traditionally, it's the firstborn son that inherits things. Ishmael was kind of cast out, kind of by the... So I think that there are, and again, I'm not a biblical scholar, so pardon me if I am speaking slightly off kilter from what it is actually in the pages, but from what I understand, there are multiple interpretations thereof. There's a little bit of, hey, God said, get Ishmael away from Isaac. Part of it is that Ishmael's mother said, hey, I think this might be a negative influence on Isaac. Part of it is Isaac was the favorite son of his father. And in the so I'm quoting the King James Version here. Take now your son, your only son, Isaac, who you love. This was when, I believe this was when God was telling Abraham, look, you're going to have to sacrifice Isaac. And it was a joke. It was a practical joke. It was a funny, but that quote, take now your son, Isaac, your only son, Isaac, who you love, inferring that by this time, not only was Ishmael cast out, but Abraham didn't even love him. This is interesting to me. Ishmael's father, the patriarch, did not love him. What a bad boy, right? This is a literary equivalent of a bad boy. And for Emily Dickinson to have taken that name, not Isaac, not the favored son, Ishmael, and said, this is the guy, right? There's something to that. There's something poetic to that. Did Emily Dickinson, I think it's pretty clear from a lot of her poetry, did Emily Dickinson see herself as an outcast, someone who might identify more with the son who was cast out than the favorite son, with the son who was sent to live in the desert than the son who inherited the fortune, inherited the wealth, the kingdom, the name? It's interesting, too, you have that name Ishmael twice divorced from the son in this poem. He is not Abraham's son. Take your son, your only son, the only son you love, Isaac. That's what Abraham is told, meaning that the son is cast off of Ishmael. But here, we also have Ishmael in correlation with the moon, not the sun, son. So that is very interesting to me as well. He's not the sun, he is the moon. And I think a poet loves that sort of thing. So that is what I have for this poetry discussion. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other literature lovers. If you find yourself here by chance but not design, literature is the only thing I talk about on this channel, dropping multiple videos every single week. There's poetry every Monday, and as always, I hope to have you back for the next one.